Hi, I'm sorry to miss seeing you all in person, and huge thanks to Danita for inviting my recorded presentation. My research is in critical health literacy and understanding the barriers to learning health information, or really learning about science. I will walk you through my teaching partnerships and projects that I've worked on, as well as give you a glance at the larger world of graphics or arts-based learning. I prefer to use graphics-based learning. I think we all suffer from grade school art trauma, struggling to color within the lines. Arts and graphics are separate and both valuable means of equity education. Today, I will focus on using graphics for equity in science education. When I began to teach in underserved communities, I looked at the data. Oregon Department of Education school environment data shows that students at George Middle School meet grade level at 24% for English language arts, 9% for math, and 18% for science. I am tasked with teaching them basic nutrition by speaking English and using a curricula. We can see that 38% of the students are English language learners. These statistics don't include a description of learning diversity. Which, honestly, I am absolutely a diverse learner. I am not an auditory learner. I get lost in complex descriptions of how-tos. When my very verbal husband tried to teach me how to grip the golf club, I cried. It's no joke how minds shut down. So to make my lessons inclusive, I draw out concepts as I teach and provide students with an accessible graphics project for learning. This picture is from a program all about potatoes. Here's what we did. The potato lesson covered nutrition, farming, and the origin of potatoes, which is Lake Titicaca, a perfect origin setting for middle schoolers. They gathered information on a folded graphic note catcher. Students also learned about the antioxidant anthocyanin by stamping their note catchers with purple potatoes. They took that knowledge further, understanding that the color of plant foods indicates nutrients. What this exercise gives students is space to capture and process information before they've acquired the language or neural networks to describe what they are learning. And graphics education is highly respectful of diversity. Here is the folded graphic. And you can see that this student captured her notes in Spanish, her primary language. These simple graphic projects allow students to capture their identity, which is my favorite part of using open graphics for education. Now I'm going to transition into the bigger world, first describing who gets this kind of education regularly, then take a peek at who's interested in linking science and the arts. My friend was principal at Cedarwood Waldorf School in Portland. When I attended fundraisers there and toured classroom, I was delighted finding how learning was built sequentially through chalkboard illustrations. At Waldorf schools, art-based learning is the norm, meeting kids' need for visual, hands-on learning. Students draw along with teachers there, just as they do in my nutrition classes. Of course, I also felt a little heart heavy at the inequity and that public school students receive very different learning. There is also a national agenda for incorporating the arts into science, engineering, and medicine. This report from the National Academies outlines the connection between the arts and scientists. The goal is twofold. The first is a partnership between scientists, graphic, and fine artists to convey information to the public. The second part is strengthening the humanity in medical practice to bring more satisfaction and peaceful hearts or mindfulness into the demanding work of providing or seeking health care. I'm a member of both groups. Graphic Medicine is an international organization that supports the skills development of graphic artists and promotes their work. I'm a trained narrative medicine facilitator from the Northwest Narrative Medicine Collaborative. This organization uses art and storytelling to build supportive community around healthcare. I like this Venn diagram. It shows the sweet spot where emotions are balanced with knowledge. People are integrating reason and emotion. However, it takes good information and a supportive environment to achieve wisdom. And of course, this is not how I grew up. Possibly, like many of us, my research was motivated by my childhood experiences. I presented this poster using symbols to improve health education in 2020. I used the story of my father, Harry, who was functionally illiterate, to show how simple graphics work for health education. When he visited his physician, who he deeply respected, he'd report back, "Dr. Chu gave me hell today." His takeaway from clinic visits was their emotional interaction because he often didn't comprehend her verbal recommendations. Knowing this, I asked him more about the visit and often educated him about his health. This is the story of how I illustrated health issues to him. The doctor gave Harry hell about his edema, quite swollen feet. Dad explained his logic model to me. The problem is the water is in my feet. He described that drinking and gravity moves water to his feet. I have to back this up and let you know my father was a farmer, so it makes sense that he would think of his experience with water runoff and gravity when considering that gravity was part of his problem. Therefore, Harry's solution was to drink less water and keep his feet up. Right away, I wondered if he knew about his lymph system. So I drew this out for him, both his blood circulation system and the lymph circulation system. He knew nothing about this. I loved his astonishment. I'd shown him a whole system inside himself that he knew nothing about. This information allowed him to develop a new logic model and behavior change plan. He began to walk more and use the exercycle in the gym. Harry's reaction to his edema is normal. This is how the brain processes. We are all vulnerable to magic elixirs. We solve problems by identifying patterns in our environment. With limited experience or access, we draw the wrong conclusions, and our mental health is a factor to our limitations. Harry also had PTSD from the Korean War. Mental health is a huge barrier to acquiring knowledge. This is part of a series I'm working on about mind states. Rumination captures brain bandwidth. People cycle through salient, often negative memories, and this makes sense. Neural pathways that are attached to negative emotions, bad experience, become the superhighway infrastructure in the brain, and it's a lot to untangle. Our brains are constantly processing over 60,000 thoughts a day. All of us interpret situations differently. However, with PTSD or rumination, the past warps into the present, and that warp shapes misperceptions and attitudes. Memories are triggers that distract. Anxiety, which has increased post-pandemic, limits brain capacity. And remember, this is the brain bandwidth in which we teach. We are tasked to circumvent students' taxed brains and welcome them into science education. I love the principles for educating personal and citizen scientists. A personal scientist identifies a problem and uses resources to collect data and develop solutions. Citizen science brings the solutions back to the community. In both cases, the science is centered around the person, their resources, and environment. This folded exercise, students were learning about bones, and you can see that this student centered herself in the drawing, which is gold star learning. I recently taught a series on Oregon bees, partnering with Betsy, the garden coordinator. We held our session in the garden, taught youth about bees and the foods they pollinate, which is about 80% of the food we eat. It's astonishing how dependent we are on bees and a huge concept for kids to wrap their brains around. After giving them facts, we encourage them to process. Creating food trucks. What foods could you serve in your community? This acts as a mind map, helping children connect concepts, develop language, and build neural networks. We are not teaching to blank slates. Our brains are loaded with unique perspectives. People come with preconceived notions, and the evidence is fully available. Using graphics or art-based education circumvents much of the brain tangle that we all have. Brains open with graphics, becoming more receptive when processing information through hands-on activities. I appreciate you welcoming my recording into your afternoon. Please reach out for resources, conversation, or for support with developing graphics education exercises. Thank you.